it was initiated in 1975. What drew me initially to Anandamaga is I had a very deep longing to do meditation, and I don't know where that came from exactly. It wasn't like anyone was meditating around me or anything, but I had this really deep desire. I wanted to learn to meditate. So I remember the first week in university, there was a little poster put up there, and in small print, it was talking about, meditation class or meditation seminar or something, and it was very humble. The post was, very, almost didn't notice it. The print was small and everything, but anyway, I noticed it. And I went up, I remember walking up the stairs to the room where the seminar was being held. And I remember immediately as I walked in the room, I saw Dada there, and I saw a monk, in orange robes, and I saw someone else sitting next to him in orange and white. And I remember as soon as I walked in, I just felt completely at home. That was like the beginning and the end.
Was this in Auckland?
Yeah, this is in Auckland, at Auckland University.
New Zealand. And you're New Zealand. And you're well known for your music. Did you always have an interest in music, or did it develop after you got initiated?
No, I had it I remember clearly from the age of 2 when we were traveling on the boat from England to Australia before we came to New Zealand. And I remember clearly the moment that I heard the piano played actually was someone playing Beethoven's. I didn't know what it was at the time, but it was Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata. And I just fell in love with it at that very first moment. And I just knew that's what I wanted to do with my life.
And what instruments had you learnt by the time you got initiated?
Well, when I was little, I had a wonderful musical background. My grandfather was a performer, dancer and performer, and my mum and dad used to sing. My father used to play drums. But instruments, I guess, I played at the feet of my grandfather because he was the one who encouraged me so much. So with him, I played ukulele when I was little, and I played piano, like the little tinky piano. And then I started to go to guitar class, which really wasn't really a guitar class, it was more like just hanging out when I was at intermediate school. So it was about 11, I guess. I learned guitar. And I stuck with the guitar. I basically taught myself.
So getting back to Anandamaga, how long before you finally met your guru, Babaji?
Well, when I was initiated, Shushanandamurti was in jail. So I wasn't able to see him physically anyway. And so for the first 5 years, I was doing my meditation very regularly, following spiritual practices, and all of that. And I knew the situation, what was happening in India. We all did. And yet we still, were very much involved in doing social service work and doing our meditation, doing different projects. We did a Rara project in Wellington, for example, music come performance space come vegetarian restaurant. And then at the point came in my life where I just felt like I had to travel. Hopped on a plane and I went first to America, my way to England. And lo and behold, I was there just a very short time, and I heard that Baba was in Jamaica. So got the next plane to Jamaica. So that was like 5 years from the time I started meditating to the time that I saw him physically.
And what was that like when you first saw him?
My first impression of Baba was surprise, I guess. I felt this incredible energy, unbelievable energy coming from this being, dressed all in white, moving like lightning, working really fast, walking very fast onto the stage there. I just felt surprise. It took a few days from seeing him physically to really falling in love with him. Yeah, it took just a couple.
And can you explain a bit more what it means to you to fall in love with Baba? What were you feeling? Was it the same as when you fall in love with a person, or was it in any way different?
No, it was different. It was like I just was, following him and running after him and doing crazy things that you wouldn't do normally. Just my heart exploded, and I just wanted to be with him every second of every moment of every day, and would basically just follow him around wherever I could and that kind of stuff. Just wanted to be close to him the whole time.
And what was the atmosphere like around you, the other Margis, and when Baba was there in Jamaica?
It was extraordinary. I mean, there was so much love in the air. There was really was overwhelming love in the air. I
Mm.
think everyone felt it. And it didn't matter that we were in this hotel and the food was really terrible and we were all sleeping in one room. We sort of really didn't care. It was just such an amazing feeling of being so close to this feeling of being totally close to Purusha, to that supreme, loving, totally benevolent being.
And you also later saw him in India, didn't you? When was that?
Yeah, I saw him. We went quite soon after that. So after seeing him, and I traveled up to Vancouver with a sister called Kumadini and her son, and then after spending a few months in Vancouver, we both went to India. So it was 1980, and we spent 6 weeks there again, just following Baba. He was on a DMC tour at the time, so we followed him on that DMC tour. We even went on the same plane as him. So
Baba.
yeah.
Did you actually see him on the plane?
Yeah, well, I was sitting like right opposite. Not well, the seat was here, and I was just a little bit behind, so I could see him the whole time, like just sitting in
So
front.
what was it? What was Baba doing in the plane? Was he talking or just being still and meditating? What was he doing?
And he was in that on that flight to Udaipur. He was like back from Udaipur, I should say. He was sitting next to Dada Ramananda, his PA. It was a short flight,
Mm.
and yeah, I just remember seeing him sitting. I actually was completely mad and went and sat next to him at one point when Dada Ramananda left his seat to go to the bathroom. Not exactly next to him, but there was a seat in between us. And then I was sitting right there. But yeah, that was amazing, absolutely mind blowing. But watching him sitting there quietly, yeah, in the seat next to Dada Ramananda.
What was Baba's reaction when you sat down next to him?
He obviously he didn't move and he didn't go anywhere. He sat there and he sat there and I asked him a question.
Which
And
was?
well, at that time I was doing music, of course, but I was also having these incredible flashbacks of sculpture, believe it or not. Since I saw him in Jamaica, it was like I couldn't believe what was happening to me. I was
Mm.
just seeing sculpture. I was like doing it with my hands, and it was kind of overwhelming, the feeling. And I asked him, Baba, should I do sculpture?
And
He said, yes, but first you have to learn to follow the system.
meaning sadhana system or Nandamaga system?
Well, well, that was interesting because I was following the system. I was following this system of 16 points,
Mm.
sadhana and so forth. But when I really think about it in recent years, I've been thinking about it. System for me meant something different.
Mm.
It meant um, it meant because I had always had a problem in my life with working out what the system was. So I suffered from dyspraxia when I was young, and I didn't know that in those days. It wasn't diagnosed. So that meant my coordination wasn't good. My understanding of practical things in life was difficult. It was slower than most. Some things came to me very easily, like music, but other things sometimes took longer. And my journey in this life and the practical level was learning about systems, was finding a system
Mm.
for these practical things. And I feel like partly, and it also related to, believe it or not, the thing that I've been passionate about all my life for kirtan. It related to that. And my whole research, my PhD research was about learning, finding out what is the system of supracetic science um, that functions
Science.
then kirtan. Yeah, the system, what is that system? And, that was my, PhD research. So system and I think he was referring to something that has been totally essential for me in my life to learn those things, both on practical levels and my research, if that
Well,
makes any sense.
joining in Undermaga is certainly the place to learn about system. Bubba was very big on system and speed. He used to say both were vital. So when was your
Yeah.
next physical encounter with Bubba? Did you get PC or?
Got PC actually in Jamaica when I first saw Baba physically. I got it there. There's a group of sisters and I got PC that time. And at that time, there was a line of us, maybe 12 of us, who went into the room, and he asked me what was my duty. And first of all, he asked me what was my name, and then he said effulgence. And then he asked me what was my duty, and I said HPMGL. And then he sat there and he started going like this, like he's playing the guitar. So
Hmm?
he's playing with me. He's smiling and he's playing the guitar and he's making everyone laugh in the room as he's pretending, the guitar. So everyone was laughing and I felt like he was laughing not at me, but he was laughing with me. He was enjoying the music, you might say. He was enjoying the kirtan. And then he gave me his blessing. And after that, I was seeing it, basically, literally seeing effulgence everywhere and everybody and everything around me. I was really blissed out for quite a long time after that. So, yeah, effulgence is what I could feel and see around me.
Wow, what an experience.
Yeah.
So going to the other extreme, it must have been fairly devastating for you when you'd heard that Bubba left his body.
Yeah. I mean, like the kind of relationship I had with Baba was very intimate, very personal. Um, I was attached. I was attached to his physical form, definitely. So when I heard, I had no doubt on my mind what I needed to do. Just jumped on the plane and went straight there, straight to India. I needed to be there. I needed to see the whole procedure. I needed to be next to his physical body before, he was cremated. Yeah, I needed that. And I was so glad that I could be there for that
What
experience.
was the atmosphere like at the cremation?
Mhm. For me, it was a mixture. It was like, of course, I'd never experienced discrimination like they have in India. So that whole thing, even though we were all singing kirtan through it, it was quite a little bit frightening, I guess you'd say. For me, it was surprising or shocking, perhaps, being a Westerner and having been sheltered from anything like that my whole life. So it was not easy to be there, that part of it. But then later on, when we had the Shraddha ceremony, and I found it very gentle and very loving and very supportive. And, that was something that I could really relate to and, appreciated that very much. And I remember at some point, having a strong feeling of, again, what I needed to do. It was about HPMGL. There was a meeting actually with HPMGL people, and I was there. And I remember just feeling very sad, very, very sad because I really wanted to communicate with everyone. They're all Indian and I couldn't communicate. And yeah, I was feeling a little bit, of course, I was overwhelmed with sadness. So that all just came out. But again, that connection with HPMGL was very strong. And was obviously still something that I needed to do. And another very strong experience I had was less than a year. I think it was less than a year. Not quite sure. Bubba was calling artists for PC, for artists company for PC. I already had my first PC, but I was called to India to come for this PC. I couldn't go at the time because at that time I think my mum had just passed, or yeah, so it was not very long before Baba passed actually. And but I had a very strong dream that night, which was so real for me. And in that dream, Baba was coming off of walking, coming from a small plane, and there was a line of us, which is similar to the number of people that were in that HPMJ meeting in India. There was a small line of us, and he walked along, and he stopped in front of me, and he gave me a piece of paper, and he said, "I give you written permission and approval to do HPMGL work." And he handed me the piece of paper, and I put it in my heart, and he did namaskar. So that was a very strong dream for me. And that was just not very long before he left his physical body. So
So,
I had no doubt about what I should be doing.
would you say that it seems to me your music, your kirtan and bhajans, have been very much an expression of your devotion for Baba, or even a part of your sadhana? Would that be true?
Yeah, definitely. Very connected. And the way that I could express, and they say music is something that you can express, things you can express through music that you can't express through words. And that
Mm.
was really true for me with the devotion and being able to just communicate with Baba and communicate and also share that with other people as a way of connecting and sharing that experience with other people was important to me.
I remember in the early days listening particularly to your bhajans, toward the devotional
Mm.
songs towards Baba. They were very uplifting and very loving. Um, but you seem, I may be wrong, but you seem to be doing more kirtan these days. Is that true? Or you're still doing a lot of bhajan?
No, it's not true. People do say that, but it's not true. I do as many song albums as I do kirtan albums. Um, I've done, I don't know how many 20 odd song albums and as many kirtan albums. It's just that the song albums are more produced than the kirtan
Right.
albums. So the kirtan albums are more live usually, and the song albums are more produced. So um, I'm not sure. Like I know in a song, for example, takes 99% kirtan and not so much the song albums. Most people go to in a song for kirtan rather than songs. So the tricky thing is marketing the song albums. So I think most Magis think that I just do kirtan, but no, I do as many songs as I do kirtans. And a lot of my kirtans come from the songs.
Right. And do you have a favorite album, both kirtan or songs?
No, that for I think for most singer-songwriters, kirtanias, it's usually the latest one that they like the most
Right.
because that's where they're at the time. So they like the latest one, and then when the next one comes along, it's that one. So that's how it is for me. Like I focus on the present and the songs that are coming now, and those are the ones where my heart lies.
So what is your latest albums now? Kirtan and bhajan?
Mm. The latest album is Unity Hours 4
Mm.
and just was released recently in Ireland. And I haven't yet done the kirtans to that album.
Right. So what do you have anything planned in the near future, either with music or any other projects?
At the moment,
Yeah, I understand you've
yeah.
been doing a podcast as well.
Yeah, I did a whole year of podcasts. I did 365 podcasts, and then I'm starting on my now weekly one. But I'm also now something I've been putting off for 12 years. I'm writing my PhD into a book. I just started that a week ago.
Before,
So
before
that's
you get in,
something that I need to do.
before you get
Hmm?
into that, what was the podcast about?
Podcast was about anything and everything. It was a way of me, it was a challenge for myself of breaking through the barriers of communicating and just really working on communication and making it a bit like a good thing where, Barbara's Day, when Barbara was alive, we'd always have these good news reports. So I'd ask different people about what they're doing and I asked them, what inspiring project are you doing at the moment? And then what are their experiences with kirtan and that sort of thing. And so yeah, yeah, did that for a year. What I'm doing now is I'm writing my PhD into a book. That's my well, I'm in New Zealand at the moment and I've got some time, so I'm going to be doing that. I started a week ago and it's yeah, tense.
Hmm.
It's intense.
All right. Well, thank you, Jyoshna, for sharing your life with us. It's been very interesting and inspiring. I hope to hear
Thank you,
more
Narada, for
from you.
inviting me.
You're welcome. Okay, namaskar.
Take care, namaskar.
'Cause there's no pain greater than love. If I could reach the heavens in my tiny balloon, why would I wait and linger? No, I jump like a fool, and I won't give in, and I won't give up. 'Cause there's no pain greater than love.